Hello.
We're
We're back.
starting a cult, and we're back again for a brand new episode.
It's true. It's true. That's Grant and I'm Jake.
I guess technically the second episode of the year, if you can believe that.
How about that?
We're
well past 3 years now.
Oh yeah, we're encroaching on 4 years because you can't go back in time. You can only go forward.
That's what they say, yeah.
But we are back with a brand new episode for you guys today, and I'm gonna go ahead and say this off the top. This episode is it's weird. I
don't know what the hell we're talking about.
It's weird. It's very muddy and kind of the best way to describe it is like a thick soup.
Yeah. This is the porridge of topics.
It's just there, so it's very
viscous.
A bit of a hybrid episode because it's more of a laid back, like relaxing chit chat episode. But it's all going to be focused on one thing that has details and facts.
It's true. And what is that one thing, Grant?
So today, we are going to be talking about something called remote viewing.
Remote viewing.
Now,
RV for short, like that great movie with Ice Cube.
Wait, I thought Robin Williams was in RV.
He also was.
Wait, Ice Cube was
I'm pretty
in
sure
that?
Ice Cube is in. I'm going to look it up right now, actually. I just said that off the cuff, but I'm pretty sure Ice Cube is in RV.
I was like, are you thinking of Are We There Yet? Because I know he was in that.
Maybe.
But we are talking about remote viewing. And essentially, before we actually get into the background on this topic, I want to give you a brief description of kind of what we're dealing with here.
I was completely wrong.
Ice
Cube was not in RV, but RV, remote viewing. How about that?
RV is sans Ice Cube, the film at least. So essentially, in a very watered down way, we're talking about, I guess if for the layman or the more local term would be like ESP.
Something like that, yeah.
Psychic readings. Essentially what it is, it's in the title. You're able to view something without actually being there. You're able to use your mind and access either a point in time or a point in the present that is not within your eyesight physically.
Yeah, you can pretty much just tell people what things are and where they are and how they're organized, that kind of thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's very, very, very similar to. I shouldn't even say similar. It is sort of a psychic ability.
It's like clairvoyance. It's very close to clairvoyance, but it's just kind of done up with more rules, and it's more like, you do this, and then this, and then this, rather than clairvoyance, you got your own way of doing it.
Yeah, so it kind of gets weird. But the reason we're not just talking about an idea here, this is something that was studied and invested in monetarily, that is.
Heavily.
By the United States government as well as the Russian government.
It's true.
So this is something that, at least in one point in time, was taken very seriously or thought to be something that could really turn the tides as far as war or international disagreements go.
No, it's 100% true. I have a little synopsis at the beginning to kind of give a brief little definition.
Perfect. Why don't you just jump right into
this?
Because,
after that, then I can go into. Look, you want to start the episode?
I think we should.
Let's
I think
do
it's
it.
time to just take your swim trunks and get ready to dive.
Cool. Remote viewing. RV, like I said, no Ice Cube.
No Ice Cube.
Yeah, it's the practice of seeking impressions about a distant or unseen target, purportedly sensing with the mind. Okay, so it's all in your mind there. The term was first suggested by Ingo Swann during the experiments with the American Society of Physical Research, or Psychical Research, rather, in 1971, and was later coined by physicist and parapsychologist researchers Russell Targ and Harold Puthoff of the Stanford Research Institute. The term was created to distinguish the practice from the very closely related clairvoyance, like I said. To the skeptics, this may sound like they're polishing up a turd, but there's more to remote viewing than one might think, all right?
That is true.
Yeah, it's not a turd. There's no washing of the turd going on that is clairvoyance, and that's not even a turd either. Clairvoyance is cool. Look into it. So the concept of remote viewing dates back quite a bit. It appeared in early occult and spiritualist literature as the terms telethesia and traveling clairvoyance. Traveling. You're going to other places. You're seeing it. You're reporting back.
Yeah,
is what it is.
It's interesting. It's like a less intense version of astral projection, you know?
Pretty much, yeah.
You're not, like, leaving, but you're just able to see things that you're not around.
Yeah. It was described in these texts to be the ability to see remote or hidden objects clairvoyantly through the inner eye, or in an alleged out-of-body travel. So it's sort of in the same realm, but like I said, you're just there. You can talk to people in the room, too, at the same time. But so this concept eventually made its way into the scientific eye. All right, around the mid-19th century. It kind of makes sense. You know, science is all about mysteries, uncovering them.
Hell yeah, why not?
We don't know anything about this. So when, well-known and respected scientists began conducting studies and experiments surrounding it, it was in the mid-19th century. Among these early scientists were Michael Faraday, who was known for his work in electromagnetism, of course, and Alfred Russel Wallace, best known for his independent, he independently conceived of natural selection at the exact same time that Darwin did, and their texts were apparently published alongside one another, which I didn't know. That was crazy.
Darwin just had an easier name to deal with. It was like, Chuck Darwin. That's way easier to remember.
Alfred Russel Wallace. It's a workout for the tongue.
AWOL, it's like, come on now. It just didn't
come on now, get out of here. But
Sorry, buddy. Sorry, Wallace.
Yeah. And William Crookes, who was known for his work in spectroscopy. Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, that's a tough one. I know exactly
spectroscopy.
I know what you're talking about, but that is a word I can't seem to grasp.
Yeah, it led him to discover an element, which is thallium. So, but however, even with such big names in the science community, like I just said, those guys are crazy. In the science community at the time, showing interest in remote viewing, their tests and experiments that were often successful were more often than not met with skepticism from the rest of the scientific community. So people have kind of been on the fence about this from the beginning.
I mean, very clearly, it makes sense. Anybody that would be approached and say, hey, I can tell you what's going on in Turkmenistan right now. You're like, oh, how? You're going to now you have phones.
How am I going to fact check it?
But yeah, it's like, you're like, wait a minute, what do you mean? It takes a lot of faith as well as a lot of time to make sure that what they're saying is accurate and not just like a fair guess or assumption or coincidence.
Yeah. And it seems like a very, very convoluted scientific experiment
to
kind of to organize, especially something that completely adheres to the scientific method.
Yeah.
It's insane. But, people were doing it, the scientists were interested, and the skepticism would last into the early 20th century, during which time J.B. Rhine expanded the existing studies on the subject to larger populations, so more larger groups of people rather than just an individual doing the same thing over and over again.
Right.
But he was hesitant to release his findings in fear of taunting from his scientific peers, those bully-ass nerds.
Fucking dorks, man. What can you say?
Those dorks are ruthless on one another. Basically, remote viewing remained in the fringes of scientific exploration, with most considering it a pseudoscience. Which is kind of fun. That's just a fun word to say, if anything else.
It is. I got a beef with pseudoscience because I don't like.
You don't believe in alchemy?
No, but I don't like the term because it's in the same camp as the word conspiracy theorist. It's like automatically by using that label, you're discrediting the thought. Like even if you don't realize what you're doing, by saying that, you're making it out to be less important than it should be taken.
It's like conspiracy theories in general. It's like me and Grant conspired to make a podcast, and I guess this is proof that the theory is correct. You know, I don't know. It's like so many things are conspired to. You can conspire to do anything.
Or like
I don't know. But for some reason, it has this like negative connotation when it comes to like believability.
If you, I'm gonna try. Actually, while Jake keeps talking, I'm gonna try to look it up. I'll come back to this.
Am I gonna keep talking?
There are things in pseudoscience that are technically not considered science, but we utilize them as science. So there's ones that we accept, and then there's ones that we laugh at.
Isn't like what is it, acupuncture?
Yeah, well,
Isn't that considered pseudoscience?
Absolutely a pseudoscience. I'm gonna look that up because I should have wrote that down. I did. Give me a minute.
Yeah, that's all right. Pull it up.
With the show.
Pull it up. Do some research. In the meantime, it was on the pseudoscience. People were considering it that, right? That is until around the 1960s, when the counterculture movements and attitudes that came with them kind of softened the severity of the opposition, right?
Softened the
people are smoking drugs. They're all fucking in the streets. No one's wearing a shirt. So this was dubbed as the New Age thinking. It was the New Age, crystals and long hair with dreads that are natural. And was housed under the movement called the Human Potential Movement, which I guess was just a very inward-looking sort of, what's in here?
Oh, what's going on here?
What's going on in my mind? This was the revitalization of public interest on consciousness and psychic studies that made it possible for those who wished to pursue it scientifically to do so. So it was a free-for-all scientifically,
Yeah.
Yeah, it was good. So many studies to come out of this time period were largely unsuccessful, which is kind of disheartening. Though there were those that kept their beliefs alive. And who were some of the people that kept the beliefs alive?
Who?
The U.S. fucking government.
Oh, obviously.
Oh, yeah. Do you want me to wait to go into this?
Yeah, because I'm gonna talk here for a minute, okay?
All right.
Back to the pseudoscience. I know this is a little off topic, but it kind of fits in because...
well, it does, because, yeah.
This is a pseudoscience.
What are we going to talk about if not?
So for those of you out there, this might break a couple hearts. You want to know what is considered a pseudoscience?
Massages?
Astrology.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah.
Astrology, the study of the stars. That is pseudoscience. It is not technically considered a science. As Jake mentioned earlier. Acupuncture. That is pseudoscience.
I was right. Unlike the RV thing.
Another pseudoscience is feng shui. Have any of you into that?
Isn't it feng shui?
Feng shui, whatever.
I don't know. I could be correcting you in the wrong direction. I don't even know.
No, it's spelled with an E.
I know it's like the flow of energy of a room based on the couch.
Yeah.
Like the furniture placement
Absolutely.
or something.
Also, you have what do they call it? Alternative treatment for cancer. That is a pseudoscience.
Was that just like eating whole knobs of ginger?
The only thing technically considered scientific as far as cancer treatment goes is chemotherapy and radiation. Any other form of treatment, even things that, can work and have worked, they're not considered scientifically accurate.
Oh, like Tommy Chong smoking CBD or whatever?
None of that is considered any of that, okay? How about that?
Well, that is unexpected, honestly. I thought there were alternatives that doctors could, subscribe.
You want to know
prescribe.
You want to know what another big one is?
Like and subscribe.
Actually, we got two big ones, okay?
What are they?
I'm leading up to it. The biggest one's going to come after this one.
Okay.
A colon cleanse. The regular run-of-the-mill thing that people do to,
is that just like
healthy.
Like an enema? Or just eating a bunch of green drinks.
It's all it's however you want to do it.
I don't know what people are doing.
Cleans out the pipes.
I've heard of coffee enemas. What does that do?
Literally, just it's coffee in the asshole.
That seems like it's way too on the nose of past jokes about coffee.
Yeah, no, it is.
I don't know.
So that one, boom, pseudoscience. You know what else? Detox. If you're, a drug addict, an alcoholic, or maybe not even that, maybe you smoke cigarettes, maybe you eat too much, the idea of detoxing is considered pseudoscience because it has no scientific backing that proves it's real or works.
So, whenever you get a massage and they're like, make sure to drink water or else the toxins will turn into little bugs and crawl at your... why do they make you drink water after that? They always say it's the toxins.
Pretty much.
So, what does that mean? It's probably just good to be hydrated, right?
I mean, I would assume so. Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know.
You want to know? I got
Some more pseudoscience?
Oh, yeah, I got a couple more. This one, interestingly enough, hair analysis.
What does that mean?
Any form of scientific study where they analyze human hair to get an answer, whether it be for a drug test or genealogical lineage, that's a pseudoscience.
What?
Yeah.
But if you pull a hair out at the root, it comes up with like a little piece of your DNA.
Nope, it's pseudoscience.
How is that pseudoscience?
It is simply pseudoscience, Jake. How
well,
about
then
that?
what's with all those shampoo commercials with our hair looking like tree trunks and then it gets smooth?
Mm-hmm.
What's it? Is there just pseudoscience all around us and no one's telling us?
Yep, and here's the two big ones, okay? There's more, obviously. I'm just picking out, big ones here.
Yeah.
I'm going to go this one because it's kind of popular now. Fasting. The idea of fasting as far as a diet or for health reasons.
Oh, like intermittent fasting?
Yep, that is a pseudoscience. That is not scientific in any way other than the fact that it's a pseudoscience.
Then why does it work for so many people that do it right?
And are you ready for the big one? This is going to make some heads turn. I guarantee it. Chiropractics. Yeah.
Why?
So a chiropractor
What do you mean?
is not in any way in the scientific field. They're actually on the fringe.
I don't even understand. Dude, fucking chiropractors have alivened muscles that have long been dead because of lack of use in people.
Doesn't matter.
Chiropractors have changed people's fucking lives in my life.
Does not matter.
That's insane.
It is pseudoscience. It's not real. But all this is to say, I know we're getting a little off topic here, but it's going to come together because the idea of pseudoscience is, I understand, it's something that could potentially be scientific or follow the scientific theory of study, things like that. But it either hasn't been looked at enough to where it's considered a true science, or it's written off as there's no way that could ever be real.
I mean, I guess some of the things that you mentioned, like fasting and hair, whatever. I could see where the scientific community would be like, you know what? There's bigger things we need to be paying attention to right now.
Oh yeah.
But that doesn't necessarily make it not feasible.
Exactly.
So I guess remote viewing is under the same umbrella as chiropractor, shit, and
yeah.
Bunch of the stuff you just said. Yeah.
It really is. And my point here is that the term really turns people off because I know plenty of people in my life that are very in the camp that pseudoscience is a joke and we don't need to concern ourselves with it. And those very people have gone to chiropractors or they read horoscopes or they practice fasting or a colon cleanse.
I'm fasting. It's such a Virgo thing to do.
Yeah, these are things that are all technically pseudoscientific. And the same way conspiracy theories work, there's a lot that are made up. There's a lot of pseudosciences that are ridiculous. I mean, let's face it. But there's also a lot that can either be personally useful or universally accepted, that we just kind of look past the label.
Seems to be, now that I know that. Yeah.
And it's important to have that mindset with remote viewing because I know, we've talked about this on the show before about psychic abilities and things like that. And they're very easy to write off. And I'll be the first to admit, I've written off plenty of psychic stories because it's oh, that's all bullshit.
No, yeah. What was that one psychic that y'all went to? They tried to charge you for each person, even though they were $10 readings. And it's I'm not getting read, but I'm in your house. And they're $10.
Yeah, no, we went and because we went, they had a deal and it was a group reading for $70 or something. And it was me, Mitch, and Georgie. And we were yeah, let's go. It's Saturday fucking afternoon. Let's go check this shit out. So we go there and knock on the door. And the creepy gypsy looking lady comes out. And she's hello? And we're yeah, we're here for the group reading. And she looks and she's $90 a person. We were what? And
$280 for you to lie to me?
Yeah, and we were what do you mean? And she was oh, that's only for people under 16. And we were this bitch is full of shit. We're getting out of here. So we left. We didn't even do it.
Is she still there?
Yeah, I think so.
Man.
I mean, I haven't gone there.
Some people just buy into it, huh?
But it's very easy to...
And I mean, even my attitude right now, I'm very skeptical of it, but it could be, but I just don't want to spend $80.
No, exactly. And I think the story that you need to understand here before we kind of go into the remote viewing is that I'm gonna go back to the same thing I said about 9/11, JFK, all of this shit, okay? The government believed it enough to invest time, people, and money into it.
I believe I saw the number roughly around $20 million.
Yes. Yeah, that'll come up in a little bit.
Yeah.
But,
do you want to maybe explain to the nice, friendly people out there listening what exactly happens during remote viewing? Because it's going to be Project Stargate Project.
Okay.
From the beginning to the end, but it doesn't really necessarily explain what they're doing. It just kind of explains what happens to the project itself.
Okay, so pretty much what happens in remote viewing. It can be done in many different ways. It's a very personal thing. But the way it's described is that it's a sixth sense. It is something that at least remote viewers believe that everybody in the world has some form of this ability.
Yeah, I watched a couple of videos where pretty much every expert on it was saying, it's something that we can all tap into, just few people take it seriously.
Yeah, it's very akin to musical ability to play an instrument.
Or the ability to sometimes you hear the phone ring and you just know who's on the other end. It's
yeah, it's just
that kind
there.
of thing, just some weird intuition.
And it's something that people possess, so it's a very personal thing. I watched an interview with a couple different proclaimed remote viewers. One of them actually does have contracts with certain higher-ups in the military and the government, or they did at one point in time. And it's an older interview, so, I mean, this was probably back in the day of Project Stargate or the aftermath.
Are you talking about the British guy?
Yeah, he was one of them.
Yeah, dude, I saw that
dude.
one. He was it's real popular over in the States, but there's about 30 of them here in the UK.
Yeah, and it's very simple, simply described. It's something that they kind of just do. It's very meditative. There's no set of rules. It's not like, on the third Tuesday of the month you have to, light a candle and face this direction. It's literally just it's as simple as closing your eyes and processing what's going on. Now, what happens, at least the described theory, is that there is some sort of visual beacon. So typically a person or an animal, something where you can visualize the surrounding area. So in one example, there was somebody that described it as almost as if they could see through the eyes of birds that were flying.
Oh, that's badass.
Kind of like in Game of Thrones, like those dudes, they could look through the birds' eyes.
Yeah.
And then other people kind of just, I don't want to say the word manipulate, but they use the energy of other people around that area to create an image of what's going on.
So they're kind of tapping into other people, the people themselves, rather than the area?
Yeah, sort of. It's never perfect. Now, that's one thing we need to understand right now, is that it's never a perfect science. There's plenty of examples of people actually getting things correct in very weird ways. So one perfect example, I don't know if this is going to come up later or not, but it was in Project Stargate, and there was an individual that was talking about a nuclear ship from Iran, and it would be traveling the seas within 100 days, and it would either be named I don't have the exact name. It was either the Papua or the Papua. Okay, that's the information the remote viewer had, and it turns out that exactly 120 days, so slightly over that timeline, a boat named the Babua left port in Iran. So they weren't incorrect, but they weren't totally correct.
Yeah, I do have one example from Stargate that we can get to later, but it kind of involves something like that.
Yeah.
But they actually found something that was missing.
No, there's a couple like that. And it's very interesting. I don't know. I don't know if you're planning on touching on like the process of how they would weed out the remote viewers or accept like the people that do the process.
Not necessarily, so go right ahead.
Okay, so this was interesting. This was in one specific example for Project Stargate. What they would do is they would bring people in, and in order to be considered well-equipped enough to be a remote viewer, you would have to score at least a 65% accuracy rate or above. Now, here's what they would do. They would take people and send them to 12 different locations, right?
Yeah.
They would keep the remote viewer in a room with somebody there that was not aware of what the location was. They didn't go to the location. Their job was to sit with the remote viewer and write the notes. So they would send out these people to the locations, right?
Yeah.
And they would act as the beacons. So they would go there, they'd look around, they'd, look at important things that were in the area, and the remote viewer would describe them to the, what do you call that? Not the translator. The
transcriber?
Yes, the transcriber. So they would do this for all 12 locations.
The scribe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they would do this for every different location, and then when this was done, they would take the notes, compile them, rearrange them so like it was shuffled, and then they would give them to a third party. This third party would act as the judge, and the judge would get a list of the locations, and he would have to match the transcriptions to which location they were talking about.
Damn, that is convoluted.
So then the way they would do this is they would do that, then they would take the judges to the location, so that way, once it was all done, they could read the transcription and see if what the remote viewer saw or believed they saw was actually happening.
Okay.
Okay?
All right.
It was not a perfect science, but there were people that scored well above 65% in their mathematical equation.
Yeah.
They were getting in the high 80s and even 90s. Their accuracy rate was incredible. But on the flip side, I'd be remiss if I didn't add this. A lot of the things that they noticed were that they would do this day by day. It wasn't all done at once. So they would do one location per day.
Yeah.
And they noticed that the location that would happen on the day after another location would follow very similar descriptions to the day previous. So let's say
So it's
one of the
a little
locations,
offset.
One of the locations was, a public park. And then the next day you were in a graveyard, okay? The public park, you'd have your description, and then the graveyard, it would have very similar descriptions to the public park. So this led them to believe that instead of remote viewing, it was just very educated guesses.
Yeah, just kind of, yeah.
Yeah, generic
just
ideas.
Educated guesses. Keeping it vague enough to be technically right.
But there were people that could get away with it. There is one example, actually, of a man who it was a very simple test. They literally put him in a room, and then they had a guy in another room, and he would just give him like a word. He'd be like, "This is what I'm holding."
Be like, "Kumquat."
With like a description. He'd be like,
Yeah.
"I'm holding this," and then he would, "Oh, is it this?" And the one example that I found interesting is the guy was holding a firework. The tester was holding a firework.
Yeah.
And the person that was remote viewing said that it was a drum set. Now you might
drum set, not a drum stick.
You might think this is fucking weird, right? It's weird. It's a horrible guess.
Loud banging.
It's a cylindrical object that makes a loud noise.
That is correct.
So
oh my God.
It's it's touchy. It's not perfect, but it's there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, again, the accuracy is a very difficult thing to pin down, but this was sort of a way that they would test to see who has the ability, and of those that do, who can really hone in on that and give a solid description of what they want.
Yeah.
Because if they were able to do that, then, for the necessities of the project, they would be a huge asset in the future.
And I wouldn't say it's like who has the gift specifically. It's like maybe who has a natural inclination to the gift that we all have.
Because I think quite a few people that are or were very good at it probably didn't know what they were really doing.
I did know that about a lot of the testing is that they kept a lot of it secret, like what they were doing.
Exactly.
Necessarily, they were just kind of like, see if you can do this.
And
how about that?
Interestingly enough, I mean, I'll bring this up at the very end. It's not like an important detail for this episode, but there was some bleed over between remote viewing and MK Ultra.
Introducing acid into the mix.
There was a little bit of bleed over into these two studies to see if it could possibly help in any way. But that's something we'll get to later.
Yeah.
So why don't we go ahead? We'll get into
Without
Project
further ado,
Stargate.
yeah.
This is the meat right here.
Yeah.
You know, this is the
bones. No, it's true. It's kind of frightening. The Stargate Project. It was a secret U.S. military unit established in 1978 whose prime directive was to study and learn everything about and surrounding remote viewing. How did it come to pass, you ask?
Money.
Sort of. It was a rumor. It was a rumor that the U.S. intelligence agencies caught word that the Soviet Union was spending 60 million rubles every year on psychotronic research.
Give me the rubles.
For the psychotronics. Dude, psychotronic is like one of the coolest words I've ever heard.
Electronic.
Psychotronic.
Supersonic.
I was thinking about that song the other day, too.
Oh, what a great fucking song.
Wait, what was it? Find the keys to my space rocket.
There's no doors, I just lock
it.
I don't know what that song actually is, but holy shit, that's great.
If you're out there, look up those lyrics and see if a cool video of a Russian dude comes up.
You'll find it. I promise you'll know what we're talking about.
It's a real fun time. But no, so yeah, the U.S. heard that Russia, Soviet Union at the time, was spending 60 million rubles every year on psychotronic research, which is the projection of sound and thoughts into people's brains, using electromagnetic radiation, radar, and surveillance techniques.
Yes.
They heard this was happening. They were like, hey, wait a minute.
Hey, wait a
hey,
second.
hang on. It was also through the grapevine that they were getting results. It was also heard through the grapevine that they were getting results, okay, which sparked the CIA to begin funding a program of their own, which they called Scanate. Scanate, and apparently it was scanned by coordinates.
That sounds like some shit out of like
sort of short for
a 1980s John Carpenter sci-fi movie.
It just reminds me of Scanners, like, you know.
Yeah, a little bit.
And Chopping Mall for some reason. Remember that movie?
Okay, yeah, no, that's a good one.
Chopping Mall. If y'all are out there, look up that too. That's a doozy.
That's just a good ride all around.
It really is.
You will not be disappointed.
Yeah. A few years later, the two men I mentioned earlier who coined the term, Targ and Putov, they gained the attention of the U.S. Department of Defense. All right, with their tests garnering a minimum of 65% success rate. Which that makes me suspicious of what you said earlier, because you said people who participated in it needed a 65% or more rate to even
that was
participate.
The threshold, pretty much. That was the threshold.
It makes me think what I was reading may have been worded a bit strangely.
No, you are correct.
It was 65% success rate in the things themselves.
That's what they were looking for. That was pretty much, in so many words, at least what I understood. That was the number they needed to get the funding.
Yeah.
Like anything below that, it was not worth paying for the project. But if they could get that, it was like, okay, we have.
Yeah, it's like 65%. How could the Department of Defense resist?
Yeah. So that's how I understood it, at least.
Well, unfortunately, soon after signing their contract with the government, an individual that the two men were working with, an illusionist and magician, Uri Geller.
Chris Angel.
He was basically him. He was like a TV personality bending spoons and shit.
Dude,
and wait a minute. So he was found to be a fraud by government investigators, and Targ and Putov lost their contract. So basically the U.S. government was like, we have to investigate this illusionist and magician. And they were just like, oh, he's a fucking fraud.
Dude,
he's an illusionist and a magician. You thought he was really doing this stuff?
If you could dupe the government with your magic abilities, like, you are the man.
Like, as far as I know, he wasn't even like bringing any numbers or statistics about the findings of these two other dudes to the table or anything. They were just like, Uri Geller is a fucking liar. It's like, yeah, he's a fucking magician.
Good for fucking him, dude. I respect that shit.
But they lost their contract.
They needed to. Honestly, at the end of the day.
It didn't kill the project because, a success to come from the project actually during the time before it was canceled. A success to come from the project while it lasted was the location of a lost Soviet spy plane.
Yeah.
All right, so some woman, she was like, it's over here. And it was. Can you believe that?
Yeah, no, she was fucking good. At least what I read, they said it didn't have the exact spot, but it was within like 15 miles.
Yeah, I unfortunately didn't write down her name, which I'm very sorry for.
I don't even know if I got the name.
She might even be alive now, and I could apologize to her in person if she wants to come on the show.
Yeah, maybe you'll listen to this and you'll be like, "Hey, that was me."
Maybe before next week, I'll just find the name and I'll put it somewhere in next week's episode.
Yeah, you'll figure it out. You'll be like, "What are they talking about? This lady?" You're like, "Oh yeah, the Russian spy plane."
Yeah. So they found the plane before they got canceled, but they got canceled because Yuri's a magician and he's a liar. Only a year later, in 1977, the government hadn't lost their interest in the subject and launched the Gondola Wish program.
Yep.
Gondola Wish.
What a funny name.
That's a visual name right there.
It sounds like a weapon in like Skyrim or something.
Sort of, but it also just sounds super romantic with like an Italian singing to you in a striped shirt.
Yeah, like a nice operatic song while you're on a cute date,
it's like, isn't this great that there's a third person here and we're being so touchy-feely right now?
Nice cheese, maybe.
I never understood that.
A nice Venice breeze.
Nice wine that's older than your grandparents.
Oh, yeah. That's how you know it's good.
Oh, it'll bankrupt you.
That shit's gross. It's so good.
I like it. But yeah, I would never spend the money. The goal of this program, the Gondola Wish program now, was to evaluate potential adversary application of remote viewing. So they're like, all right, yeah, we canceled that contract because it's worthless, but we still need to, figure out if our opponents are using it. So we have to, be prepared. So it was just an excuse to keep the research going, it sounds like.
Yeah, pretty much.
Wouldn't you say?
Use your Skyballs and tell me if you can see anything over there. That's pretty much...
Skyballs.
That's pretty much what the test was,
Yeah. Another year later, in 1978, this program had its name changed.
And this is the best name that they came up with.
Grill Flame.
Yep, that's my favorite.
It's fucking Billy Mays ass shit.
It's not even like a good name. It's like fucking... It's like Dale Gribble and Hank Hill came up with a fucking government name.
Yeah, like the name for the end of days, just like a collaboration.
Operation Grill Flame. Okay. Cool.
And it was formalized. So now it was in a building. Like they had an office now. Buildings 2560 and 2561 at Fort Meade in Maryland. Is it Meade? It's Meade.
Yeah.
Is it Meade or Meade?
No, it's Fort Meade.
Meade.
That's how I've
Meade.
That's how I've always heard it pronounced.
Meade, eh? Well, so in 1979, the program began finding its footing, right? So everything was going pretty well, doing the things that you mentioned earlier. And researchers and their work from the Stanford Research Institute, which is where the two original dudes, Putov and the other man, came from, they were being integrated in. So like their peers and stuff, they're like, come on, work for the government. And they were like, oh yeah. This went on for years. All right, so in 1983, the name changed again. This time to INSCOM Center Lane.
Oh.
INSCOM. And in 1984, investigative journalist Jack Anderson, who's apparently a very well-known journalist. I didn't know until I was doing this, and I looked at him. I looked him up, and I was like, Jesus Christ.
Like, people love this guy.
He was a great journalist. He was made privy to the secret program and ran a story on it, right? Because that's what they do, those journalists. This was not looked on favorably by the National Academy of Sciences National Research Center. Long-ass name. And funding was cut the next year.
Oh.
Again. But still the interest remained resolute. All right? The program was again renamed as Sunstreak. Which just makes me think of being a young child with streaks in my underwear.
Okay, perfect.
And was now being funded by the DIA's Scientific and Technical Intelligence Directorate.
Ooh.
All right, so funding's coming from all these different places. The name's changing a million times. They're still they love it. They can't get enough of this remote viewing. They want to know. By 1991, the security was altered from special access program to limited dissemination, and then had its name changed again for the final time to Stargate. All right, so this is the Stargate project. Fuck. Oh, yeah. Stargate operations, they continued up until 1995 when the Defense Appropriation Bill was passed, sending all of its, sending Project Stargate to be reviewed by the DIA and the CIA, who concluded that the program in all its iterations had not produced a practical use or result in all of its operation. Basically, the American Institute for Research reported that no remote viewing report was it never provided any actionable information for any intelligence operations.
Yeah.
So it was useless, basically. And over that time, the many decades, they roughly spent about $20 million.
Yes.
Which is not a lot of spending, government-wise.
It's not, no. It doesn't.
But it's still a lot of money.
In theory, remote viewing is free. You know, it doesn't take money to do it. You just go for it.
Dude, you know that movie, The Men Who Stare at Goats?
Yeah.
Or the book first, but then the movie that's more campy?
Yeah.
It involves this.
Oh.
It involves Stargate.
Okay.
All right? Isn't that fun? I've never seen that movie, but I remember George Clooney staring at a goat and it falls over in the preview.
Yeah, no, I do remember that.
And that's all I needed, really.
If you're going to take away anything from what we've said thus far in the episode, it's very important to note the CIA's results of Project Stargate.
Yeah, they're just like, we didn't do anything.
The CIA has openly admitted that it produced no valid results and that it was squashing the project because they couldn't get anything out of it. Now, if we know anything about the CIA, it's that they are 100% transparent, and they share all of their information with everyone in the United States.
Oh, yes,
America.
of course, definitely 100%.
They have no qualms about sharing any of their information. Obviously, this is all horrible sarcasm, because the CIA is the most fucking despicable, covert, evil fucking group that America has ever created. And
there's literally nothing you can trust from them.
Pretty much anything of value that they have or they were able to get their hands on will never be shared with us because it's of value to them.
Yeah.
So
any information to come from them that seems secret is probably just inaccurate versions of the thing that's true.
Exactly.
So
it's a very
like fucking Blink-182 man talking about aliens with all the officials behind him. It's like he's probably just saying what they told him, which is just not correct.
Yeah, exactly.
But it is happening.
It's all
so
bullshit.
Confusing.
It stirs the pot. It gets people interested. And the thing with remote viewing is that it's not a simple thing to look at. It's not. I mean, I'm not going to say that, like ghost hunting or cryptid hunting, things like that, they're not simple either. But those are both fields where you get tangible evidence after a successful go.
Yeah.
Remote viewing, you really don't, because even in the example of the woman finding the Russian plane,
it's like within coordinates of 15 miles.
Yeah, like I think that is absolutely insane. Like
it's fucking bonkers.
I think that, especially the fact that is a true fact. It's a reviewable piece of evidence that we could say we had no idea where this was, and this lady literally was just one day, it was like, oh yeah, it's right here, and she found it. That very easily could be coincidence, and I'm not going to try to argue people that believe that, but that's the most tangible proof we can get, is somebody doing that, or providing details of that.
Yeah.
And it's very sticky, it's very muddy. That's why we called it soupy, because it's impossible to pinpoint, hey, this person can do it, or this can't.
It's the forbidden porridge.
But the simple truth is this: whether you believe in remote viewing or not, The government spent $20 million in roughly 30 years looking into people that could do it, trying to find people that could, and even using information they gathered from it in order to make decisions and, operate missions.
Yeah, I'm trying to find this woman's name right now.
Oh, yeah, you keep going.
I need to find it. You keep going, and I'll blurt it out when I find it.
Perfect.
Rosemary Smith. I found it immediately.
That was almost scary.
It was Rosemary Smith, a young administrative assistant recruited by the project director Dale Graff.
There you go, Rosemary Smith.
She found it, the spy plane, I mean.
So the thing here is that it's, like I just said, it's impossible to prove any of this correct. But in order to understand the interest we had in remote viewing, and probably still do, it's important to look back in history. And I know people for some reason, I don't know if that happened in the other generations as well, people really don't like the idea of well, that's just how it was. People really hate that nowadays.
Yeah. Well, no, yeah, I feel like that's a relatively modern thing, what with people trying to not actively be racist and things.
Yeah, I mean, that definitely doesn't help the situation.
Yeah, I feel like before that, everyone was like, yeah, we're just looking for the next day, really.
And I think in order to completely understand it, you have to get into that mindset of it was a different time. I mean, we were genuinely afraid of Russia. Everybody was spying on everybody.
Yeah.
And it was almost the part that I find crazy about the espionage thing of, the Cold War was that it was pretty internationally accepted because everybody was already aware that they were doing it too,
Yeah, because it was kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy. It's like, they're spying on us. We have to spy back.
Yeah.
And then it just, yeah.
It's like we weren't pissed off that, Russian spies might be infiltrating because we had American spies that were trying to do the same thing over there.
Yeah.
So it's like it was this weird, untrustworthy time period where everybody was just fighting for a leg up, whether it be in nuclear weapons, information, technology, whatever it is.
I mean, they were
give you an inch.
Yeah, dude, everyone was fucking terrified in America. They had, Red Scare shit. I'm pretty sure it was either my dad or my grandparents. I don't think it was my grandparents. That was too far back. But my dad, remembers going through, bombing, fucking drills where you just get under your desk.
Oh, yeah.
And it was just if Russia comes, it's like, well, that's probably won't save you, huh?
It's like, it might, I don't know, stop a piece of brick from crushing your skull, but it's not going to save your life.
Red Dawn didn't help the movie.
No, that movie ruined people. Wolverines!
Wolverines! And now Josh Peck is in there in the remake. I haven't seen the remake, but,
we don't talk about that.
Red Scare.
But this led to remote viewing getting such a stronghold in the CIA and the government and all there because it was the forbidden technology. It was the shit that no one else could have, and you could literally, without leaving the comfort of your base or your office or your home, you could get the answers you needed. You could find the secrets. You could get the details if done correctly.
Yeah.
So the idea that they spent so much time and energy on it makes sense from a historical standpoint.
I guess, yeah. I mean, a lot more money's been put into a lot stranger things.
Oh, yeah.
And
I mean, I think the way to put it... Now, to be fair, I didn't live through the Cold War, so I'm not saying that this is a fair assessment. Okay?
All right.
But for the more, recent community, for people that are, the newer generation, they have no familiarity with that, a good way to compare this would be the way people feel about the government now, where they feel very untrustworthy. No matter what they do, they're against it. They're very just opposition to the government.
Yeah.
Picture that, but it's on a global scale. Every government feels that way about every other government.
Yeah.
That's the world. That's what was happening. And the only way to protect yourself against that was to get the information you needed to survive.
Yeah. The entire world was crossing the street when they saw the rest of the world coming at them the other way.
Pretty much. And remote viewing, what's interesting, though, is even though it was written off as, not real or not substantial, whatever you want to call it, whatever they labeled it as, it's still used today on a very small scale. I mean, it's used in police investigation. I'm sure that the government...
It's met with like a shit ton of skepticism every time, but sometimes it pays off.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, like that one guy that I said I watched the same video as you, like that older dude talking about it.
Yeah, the guy from the UK.
Dude, he apparently, all his contracts for his ability to do like remote viewing, most of them come from the U.S.
Yeah.
And like he talks about that. He's like, yeah, they give me coordinates and I go in front of a table that doesn't have anything on it, and I just... the like light starts to kind of form into shapes, and I report back, and yeah, I get money.
Exactly.
Badass.
And it's happening on a very small scale. And yeah, like that guy, I'm sure I would be willing to bet money that the U.S. government still uses remote viewers in some capacity.
Oh, of course.
Definitely not to the level they did back through the 70s through the 90s. But it still happens. I mean, you can't write it off, because even if it's fake, you can't deny that when they're right, they're right. And, it's like they're going to use that information.
There's something to it.
I mean,
It's been around long enough and been prevalent enough, and recently enough, honestly, by our own fucking government, the early 90s, the mid-90s.
Yeah, and something
come on.
that I find intriguing... and the reason that I tend to believe in the idea of remote viewing is because even though when you call it remote viewing, it feels very robotic and scientific.
I honestly thought when you said, like, dude, we should do an episode on remote viewing, I thought you were talking about, like, the FBI looking at us through the fucking cameras on our computers.
That'd be cool.
That's what I thought you were talking about, and then I looked it up. I was like, oh.
Yeah, it's weirder somehow in a way. But it's not like a Western thing. I mean, this has been throughout mankind. You always, hear things, read stories in the history books. There's people that they were just the seers or, the fortune tellers.
Yeah, the soothsayers, like yeah.
They were always prevalent. They had this weird intuition to where they could, predict future events or, say something and then this would come true.
Yeah. Kill your dad, marry your mom.
They had this weird fucking energy about them, and people like that. Like, they really like that. And even now, it's interesting to people. So, the fact that it is still popular and was so popular not that long ago, it's not very weird. It's not foreign. I mean, it's something that's
still impressive when done well, but it's more just understood. I feel like a good comparison would be it's like a lot of the interviewees of Nardwuar. They're just like, how the fuck did you know that?
Yeah, a little bit.
It's like, how do you know these things? Well, you have it physically here. It's like just that kind of bewilderment.
Yeah,
when
exactly.
It's correct. It's like it. Nardwuar, I don't think, is a remote viewer, but
he could be.
He very well could be. Maybe we could ask him that.
We don't know.
When we call him after this.
And I think it's fair to say, in the wind down of this episode here, I think it's very, very fair to say that remote viewing can be real.
I agree.
It's been utilized in the past by our very own government here in the States.
Even though the most notoriously lying part of the government said that it didn't.
Oh yeah, that's how you know it's true.
That's how you know.
Probably real because
they were like
fake.
levitating bitches. It was like Stranger Things up in that shit.
It could have been. We never know.
11? Are you kidding me?
And it's just something that it's very weird because, like we said, in the earlier parts of this episode, there's no way to prove that it's real. Just as much as there's no way to truly disprove that it's fake. Or wait, that it's real. No, if disprove that it's fake would prove it's real. I said that all backwards.
You can't prove it's real, can't prove it's fake.
Yeah. That's what I meant.
You gotta be consistent.
I think, at least in my humble opinion as the co-host of this show, remote viewing can be and is real and is practiced daily in the world. And maybe one day it will be a little bit more tangible.
I also think this as my humble opinion as the co-host of this show.
Well, you made it sound like I have you chained up or something. Like
I am also here, Grant.
I listen. I agree. I'm going to repeat. I don't have him chained up, guys. It's fine. He's here on his own free will.
Yeah, you let me go every Friday to do the show.
He's free to do his business.
To massage his wrists from the shackles.
It's fine. He won't be in that much pain. We have plenty of
Not that
lubricant.
much. Yeah, I actually got a full loaf of bread this week.
Oh, yeah.
So.
We gave him the good... I mean...
It's a little wet. They peed in it. But...
purchased the good French bread.
Oh, good. Cut up the roof on my mouth.
It's perfect.
Navi pees on me daily.
Well, that's just,
He's biting my ankles.
That's what he does. I think with that being said, that's our episode.
Yeah, I think that's it. Remote viewing. How about that? What do you think about that? I think it's pretty close to what they tried to portray Lorraine Warren doing in the most, what was it, the Amityville case? Which movie was that?
Yeah,
Where at the beginning.
The Devil Made Me Do It when she's like in the woods.
Oh,
and,
that
like,
one too.
That. Yeah,
but even in the one with that for Amityville, it was like she was walking through the house doing it.
Yeah, it's like clairvoyance in a way. It's similar.
Whoa. Yeah, but remote viewing, isn't that insane?
Yeah, it's premonition is another. It'd be a decent synonym for it.
Synonym. Yeah.
That would be a good way to put it, almost.
Synonymous.
But yeah, so that is our episode the week, guys.
For the week, you guys. You can follow us on all this shit. We got Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, and we have an email. It's startacult@gmail.com. Give us any of your complaints or maybe adulations. I don't know what you want to say to us, but you can say it at startacult@gmail.com. There's also a link below for Patreon where you can hear me and Grant talk about whatever the fuck every 2 weeks. Kind of like this, but it's more just us talking.
Yeah, it's more laid back and chill.
Talk about work, talk about COVID, talk about just whatever. Baseball things, who knows.
Yeah, whatever's going on in the world that day is what we're talking about.
Oh, and YouTube. We're on YouTube. I was looking through some of our YouTube shit.
Yeah.
Man, we got some positive-ass comments, dude. Thank you all, whoever you are.
Yeah, I tried to reply back
very nice.
to most of the YouTube comments. There may be a couple that I missed. Dude, I'm not sure how the Finders episode...
The Finders, like, all of our episodes on YouTube have, like, maybe, like, an average of, like, 7-8 views.
Yeah, the YouTube is
Finders
dead for us.
Has over 1,000. We're just like, what the fuck happened?
Yeah, I don't know.
Everyone loves the Finders.
How did that occur? But, god damn it, do we love you guys. You're fantastic.
Damn it, do we love you. So, yeah, go over there on YouTube, subscribe.
If you're and subscribe. If you're a YouTube viewer, if that's where you like to see our show... Start commenting, start interacting. I will check it.
We'll say your name. We'll say we love you.
Yeah, we will
because we do.
I'll check it out. I go on. I had gone on there at least on the page because it was like I don't really look at it.
I didn't even know if I should trust you that it existed. I was just like I haven't seen any of this. But then I looked at it and I was like, oh, it's there.
Yeah, and if you ever log in, I use that as my personal YouTube.
Yeah, I could tell by the suggested.
So all the suggested videos are like my personal YouTube things.
Yeah, it's a lot of camping with Steve and memes.
Yeah,
it's mostly that.
Yeah, I do a lot of that. Weird. They've been throwing movies at me. They're like, "Watch this movie." I'm like, I don't really want to.
I don't want to watch that on YouTube.
But yeah, so we are active on all of our sites that we utilize.
We're firing on most cylinders.
Instagram and YouTube and our email.
Those are the biggest ones.
Definitely the quickest, easiest ways to interact with us.
Twitter's dead. Yeah. But it's still there. You can go there.
Twitter's dead. Facebook's pretty much dead.
Yeah.
Facebook's like, it was made.
Facebook is connected to our Insta, so it's just pictures and the posts from Instagram.
Yeah, and it's like Facebook really was only created because it's like just part of the world. It's like, oh, if you have,
if you have something you're starting, like, yeah, you have to have that.
It's like, yeah, I don't think I've looked on our Facebook page in months.
No, I mean, the only reason you have one is to start something. The only reason I've ever had one my entire life past the age of 12 is because I've had a band, a podcast, and then another podcast.
There you go. You got to have activity, You
have to stay prevalent.
But yeah, so we will be back, as always, with a brand new episode.
We'll be back
for you guys.
next week with something cool like this one.
Enjoy yourselves. Stay warm. It's cold by us.
It's
very cold.
There's no temperature. 0 out there.
Yeah, so definitely try and stay warmer this week if you have to deal with that.
Start a fire.
And if you're somewhere where it's warm year-round, go fuck yourself because I'm jealous of you. So
yeah.
I love you still, but
if you have something to say to Grant because of that, email us.
Yeah,
startacult@gmail.com.
Tell me something, bro. Come on, fight me.
Yeah. Well, that's Grant. I'm Jake. We are starting a cult.
Bye.
Goodbye.